Have you ever thought about how many chemicals you interact with before breakfast? You wake up, you make coffee, you scramble eggs, you pack leftovers, and without realizing it, you may have already been exposed to plastics, synthetic coatings, microparticles, artificial fragrances, and residues all before 9 a.m. Now here's the important part. This is not about fear. It's about awareness. Because the kitchen, the place where we prepare food to feed ourselves, is also one of the biggest daily sources of low-level chemical exposure. And the good news is, you don't need to renovate your entire home, you don't need to throw everything out, you don't need to live off-grid in the forest, you just need a few smart swaps. Today, I'm going to walk you through 7 simple, realistic, non-toxic kitchen upgrades that can dramatically reduce your daily chemical load naturally. And stick around until the end, because I'll tell you which one swap makes the biggest impact if you're starting from scratch. Let's get into it. Before we talk about swaps, before we talk about pans, plastics, or water filters, we need to answer a deeper question. What are these chemicals actually doing in our bodies? Because this isn't about trends. It isn't about aesthetics. And it definitely isn't about paranoia. It's about understanding how modern life quietly changed our biological environment. How did these chemicals enter our lives? Most of the chemicals we're talking about today didn't exist in meaningful amounts 100 years ago. After World War II, synthetic chemistry exploded, new materials were invented to make life more convenient, more durable, more affordable, more efficient. Non-stick coatings, plastic containers, water-resistant fabrics, food packaging, synthetic fragrances, industrial cleaners, and at first they seemed like miracles. Plastic was revolutionary, non-stick pans saved time, preservatives extended shelf life. But here's the thing, human biology evolves slowly. Industrial chemistry evolves fast. And over time, we started noticing something. These compounds don't just stay in products. They enter our air, our water, our soil, our food, and eventually our bloodstream. What happens when they enter the body? Now let's break this down clearly. Many of these compounds, like PFAS, BPA, phthalates, and certain synthetic fragrance chemicals, are known as endocrine disruptors. That means they can interfere with your hormone system. Hormones are your body's chemical messengers. They regulate metabolism, reproduction, mood, thyroid function, growth, sleep, immune response. Even tiny disruptions can ripple outward. Some of these chemicals mimic estrogen, some block testosterone, some interfere with thyroid signaling, others accumulate in fat tissue, some persist in the bloodstream for years. That's why PFAS are called forever chemicals. The body doesn't easily break them down. What have these chemicals been linked to? Let's stay grounded in evidence. Long-term exposure to certain industrial chemicals has been associated with increased risk of hormonal imbalances, fertility challenges, thyroid dysfunction, metabolic disorders, immune suppression, developmental delays in children. Certain cancers now pause. Association does not mean instant cause. It means repeated exposure over time may increase risk, and that's the key word here, cumulative. It's not about one plastic container, it's about daily, low-dose exposure over decades. Why small daily exposure matters. Your body is incredibly intelligent. You have detoxification systems, liver, kidneys, lymphatic system, gut. They work constantly. But modern exposure levels are historically unprecedented. Studies have detected dozens, sometimes hundreds, of synthetic compounds in human blood samples, even in newborns. Let that sink in. Babies are now born with measurable levels of industrial chemicals in their cord blood, not because parents did something wrong, but because these substances became embedded in modern infrastructure. Where do most exposures happen? There are 3 primary daily exposure points. 1. Food contact materials. 2. Drinking water. 3. Household products, and the kitchen intersects with all 3. You heat food, you store food, you drink water, you wash dishes, you cook at high temperatures. Heat, friction, and fat, all common in kitchens, can accelerate chemical migration from materials into food. That's why the kitchen is such a powerful leverage point. What have we learned so far? Over the past 2 decades, regulatory agencies worldwide have begun restricting certain chemicals. For example, BPA has been removed from many baby bottles, some PFAS compounds have been phased out, certain phthalates are restricted in children's products. Why? Because evidence accumulated. But here's the important part. Often, chemicals are regulated after widespread exposure, not before, which means personal awareness matters, not fear. Awareness. Why avoiding them is important, without becoming obsessive. You cannot eliminate all exposure. That's unrealistic. But research consistently shows when exposure decreases, body burden decreases, hormone markers improve, inflammation markers improve, metabolic markers improve. The body responds positively when we remove unnecessary stressors. Think of it like lowering background noise. You may not notice the noise while it's there, but once it's gone, everything feels clearer. The goal is reduction, not perfection. This isn't about living in a bubble, it's about removing the exposures that are easy to change, cost little or nothing, provide long-term benefit. And the kitchen, it's one of the easiest places to start, because small daily habits compound. Every meal, every reheated leftover, every glass of water, tiny inputs, repeated thousands of times, that's either a slow accumulation or a slow detox. And that's why today's swaps matter. Now that we understand what these chemicals are doing and how they entered modern life, let's talk about how to reduce them simply and realistically. Number 1. Swap non-stick pans. Let's start with something almost everyone owns, non-stick cookware. Non-stick pans became popular because they're convenient. Nothing sticks, easy cleanup, less oil. But here's what most people don't realize. Many traditional non-stick coatings have been made using chemicals known as PFAS, often called forever chemicals. Why forever? Because they don't break down easily, not in the environment and not in the human body. When pans get scratched, when they overheat, when they age, those coatings can degrade. Now, this is not about panic. If you own one, it doesn't mean you're in danger, but if you're slowly upgrading your kitchen, this is a powerful place to start. Better alternatives: stainless steel, cast iron, carbon steel, high-quality ceramic. Cast iron, for example, is nearly indestructible. It can last generations, and it actually adds small amounts of iron to your food. Stainless steel is incredibly stable and safe at high temperatures. Yes, there's a learning curve. Food can stick at first, but once you learn proper heating and oiling techniques, you'll never go back. And here's the bonus. These options don't just reduce chemical exposure, they last decades. Number 2, replace plastic food storage. Now let's talk about something that touches your food for hours. Plastic storage containers. Especially when you store hot leftovers, you microwave them, you put them in the dishwasher. Heat plus plastic call increased chemical migration. You've probably heard of BPA. Many brands now advertise BPA-free. But here's the catch. BPA-free doesn't mean chemical-free. Often, BPA is replaced with similar compounds. And we're still learning about their long-term effects. So what's the easy solution? Glass. Glass containers with silicone seals, stainless steel lids, or even simple mason jars. Glass doesn't leach, it doesn't absorb odors, it doesn't stain, and it lasts forever if you don't drop it. If you do one thing this month, stop microwaving food in plastic. That change alone reduces one of the most common daily exposures. Number 3, ditch plastic wrap. Plastic wrap seems harmless. It's thin, it's light, it's everywhere. But when it sits directly on food, especially warm or fatty food, chemicals can transfer. Fat is particularly good at absorbing chemical compounds. So what can you use instead? Beeswax wraps, silicone stretch lids, parchment paper, or simply putting a plate over a bowl. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the best ones. And beeswax wraps? They're reusable, they're breathable, they're compostable, plus they just look better in your fridge. Small change, big long-term difference. Number 4, upgrade your cutting board. This one surprises people, plastic cutting boards. Every time you chop, you're creating tiny grooves. And over time, those grooves shed microplastics. Where do those microplastics go? Into your food. Wood cutting boards like maple or walnut are naturally antimicrobial when properly maintained. Bamboo is another popular option. And no, wood isn't less sanitary if you clean it properly. In fact, some studies show bacteria die faster in wood fibers than on plastic surfaces. A solid wood cutting board lasts longer, doesn't shed microplastics, looks beautiful, ages gracefully. It's one of those upgrades that feels good every time you cook. Number 5, filter your tap water. Water is the most consumed substance in your kitchen. We drink it, cook with it, boil pasta in it, make coffee with it. Depending on your location, tap water can contain chlorine, heavy metals, agricultural runoff, PFAS, pharmaceutical traces. Not everywhere, but enough places to make filtration worth considering. You don't need a $2,000 system. Start simple. Activated carbon pitcher, faucet-mounted filter, under sink carbon filter. Look for NSF certifications. Filtered water can improve taste, reduce odor, lower contaminant exposure. And since you use water every single day, this swap compounds over time. Number 6, switch to cleaner dish soap. Now let's talk about what touches your dishes before your food does. Conventional dish soaps can contain synthetic fragrances, artificial dyes, preservatives, harsh surfactants. Fragrance alone can contain dozens of undisclosed compounds. And while dish soap rinses off, residue can remain. Your skin also absorbs what you wash with daily. Look for fragrance-free formulas, transparent ingredient lists, plant-based surfactants. Sometimes the simplest ingredient list is the best one. Avoid heavily scented antibacterial formulas unless medically necessary. Remember, hot water and proper scrubbing already do most of the work. Number 7, stop heating food with plastic utensils. Think about this. Plastic spatula in a hot pan, plastic ladle in boiling soup, plastic spoon resting on the edge of a pot. Heat accelerates chemical migration. Even high-heat plastics degrade over time. Swap them out for wooden utensils, stainless steel, food-grade silicone rated for high heat. Wooden utensils are inexpensive. They don't scratch pans, they don't leach chemicals, they last years. This is one of the cheapest upgrades with immediate benefit. Bonus habits. A few extra small habits that make a big difference. Open windows when cooking, especially with gas stoves. Skip aerosol cooking sprays. Use oil in a glass bottle. Wash produce thoroughly. Avoid heavily scratched cookware. You don't need to be perfect, just consistent. The most important swap. If you're overwhelmed and can only do one thing, start with stop heating food in plastic. That single change reduces one of the highest daily exposure risks. Here's the truth. You cannot eliminate every chemical from modern life, but you can reduce unnecessary exposure. And the kitchen, that's one of the most powerful places to start. Not because of fear, but because of control. You cook there, you nourish yourself there, you gather there. Small upgrades. Long-term impact. Health without obsession. If this video helped you, consider sharing it with someone who cares about living a little cleaner without going crazy about it.